all, and welcome to another edition of the Sal Greco Show. Thank you all for tuning in. If you are watching us on YouTube, please hit that like, share, subscribe button, hit that notification button as well. If you're watching us on Rumble, please hit that Rumble button, hit that like button. And if you're watching us on X streaming live right now, please reshare this out to all your friends and any low information person you may know who needs to be informed, because this is a fact-based analysis show. There's a lot to get to today. I'm going to also have a guest that I think will be a very interesting, because it's somebody from law enforcement that is now running for office, and their name is not Eric Adams. So you could rest assured that this will be someone that is qualified to be in office. So we're going to get to that. But first, what can I say? There's a lot going on here. So I was going to show you this video of there's an exchange today with Elise Stefanik, and they're having a hearing on the sanctuary states in this country. And of course, here's Elise Stefanik, who listen, she probably is going to be the Republican candidate for governor. And she is questioning the current governor of the New York State, which is this great stuff, because she's the congresswoman. So she's on the committee. She could ask her. So let's play this exchange, because this is interesting.
Thank you. Chair recognizes Ms. Stefanik from New York.
Thank you. Governor Hochul, on your first day in office, you signed Executive Order 1. Is that correct?
I believe it is.
And you extended this executive order not once, not twice, but 3 times, most recently January 16th of this year. Is that correct?
If that's what your facts show, I signed countless executive orders.
I would assume you'd know it's
laws.
Executive Order 1. And this is a continuation of your predecessor's sanctuary state policies, correct? Is included in that.
I want to be sure we are defining sanctuary state properly.
I'll define it for you. It is the policy of the state that state officers or employees shall not disclose information to federal immigration authorities for the purpose of federal civil immigration enforcement. It goes on to say, law enforcement officers may not use resources, equipment, or personnel for the purpose of detecting and apprehending any individual suspected or wanted for violating a civil immigration office. Law enforcement officers have no authority in the state of New York to take any policy action solely because the person is an undocumented alien. That's a quote in your executive orders that you extended. Now, do you know who Sakir Akan is?
I want to get back to the first part.
No, I'm
of the
asking a question. Do you know who
Well,
Sakir Akan is?
I want to make sure you understand that this simply says that we will cooperate with ICE.
No,
in
it does not
all-
say that. I read what it
We will
says, and let me talk to you about the results. Do you know who Sakir Akan is? You should, as the governor of New York State. Do you know?
Refresh my recollection.
He was an illegal migrant in New York. And do you know what crime he committed in addition to being here illegally?
No, I do not.
You do not. This was widely reported. He found a 15-year-old girl, threatened her with a metal pole, told her to get into the back seat of his car. He took her clothes off, and he violently raped her in Albany, New York. Do you know who Sebastian Zapita Khalil is?
I'm sure you'll tell me there's many cases, whether they're
These are
here-
high-profile cases.
Yes.
New Yorkers know about them, and you don't. So let's talk about Sebastian Zapita Khalil. Do you know who that is?
I don't have the specific details at my disposal, no.
Well, this is an illegal migrant in New York because of your sanctuary state policies. Do you know what crime he committed?
I'm not familiar at this moment.
I bet you're going to be familiar when I remind you. He found a sleeping woman on the subway, lit her on fire, and burned her alive. This is in Kathy Hochul's New York. And as I'm sure you are aware, and I'll remind you, that ICE issued an order to detain this violent criminal, but that was rejected by New York officials.
That right there is going to be the campaign commercial for Elise Stefanik when she officially is the candidate for governor as a Republican. That is a epic takedown. I don't know how, as governor of New York, you don't know high-profile cases and who's involved in those. It shows you that Kathy Hochul is out of touch. She was about to poo-poo that as well. If he's caught that, she says, well, I'm sure there's a lot of cases. So she doesn't know the cases, and yet you're the governor of the state. That is alarming. That is troubling. But again, that'll be an election issue, and I'm sure if New York isn't full of low information voters when it comes to vote next year for the governor, you're going to have a different governor starting 2 years from now. And hopefully that happens, because, my God, I mean, how do you not know that the victims' names? And also the sanctuary city policy is correct that she is stating that she doesn't allow law enforcement to aid ICE and any civil enforcement, and even the actual criminal side is also, it comes with certain restrictions and all that nonsense. So she's right to ask her about that and bludgeon her with victims' names, because how do you not know the victims' names? It's really mind-boggling. But that's who's the governor of New York, folks. And speaking of New York, we have seen in the last couple of hours what's been going on, right? So this is from freedomnews.tv. It's only a Scootercaster. That is the 83rd precinct. Okay. Some of these rioters, okay, with their faces covered, two in particular, two gentlemen that were all wearing all black and masked up, lit 8 vehicles on fire, as you can see. So that's the station house of the 83rd precinct. And I'd like to point out that the personnel from the 83rd precinct is forced to be at other locations, such as New York City, where momentarily we'll show you some of the footage that's going on over there, Brooklyn. You have a lot of resources from all these precincts having to go and get these people, try to I say quell the riots that are ongoing in New York City. And what happens here? Some two of these skells run into the precinct, into the parking lot, and decide to start playing with fire. We've seen this now in Los Angeles. We've seen this in Atlanta. Now it's in New York City. You're seeing this widespread. There's more footage. This is in New York City. This is in the last 48 hours. Look at the chaos that's in the street. Now, remember, you're using all these resources, all these police officers. Look how many there are. They have to march in the streets because, as you could tell, the agitators are there. You can see them walking around. They got their cameras out. They're waiting to say the gotcha moment. They're looking to make the next lieutenant become the most complaint cop because they want to replace Eric Dim now. They're going to put a new cop there. That's what these people are doing. They're all wearing masks. What is this riot about? What is this about? What is it about? What are we rioting about now? Now look, they're trying to get over the banisters. Here they are fighting with cops. And it takes multiple cops to even quell this. Like Nighthawk, you're right. He says it's a bunch of derelicts. I say it's worse than that. These people love, and they were breaking things. This footage is light compared to the footage I was seeing from New York City. Okay, and you could tell they're trying to communicate with all the other officers on how they're going to. They have to keep those rioters from the other side of those guardrails because they're looking to go over the guardrails and then roll into the middle of the street so they can stop traffic. And then you're going to have the 4 or 5 or 6 of them group up and start throwing bricks and all this other fancy stuff they have in their backpacks as they're walking around. Look, I'm for regular protests. You want to make a statement, I don't care what, you're Republican, Democrat, that's all fun and dandy. Some of it's laughable, some of the stuff we see. But this stuff is not funny. These people outnumber all the police. They're not getting arrested because they're just standing there saying, peace be unto you, my brother. That's not what they're saying in the street. I mean, some of the stuff they're saying is vile rhetoric. Okay. And it takes a lot of resources, as you can tell, to even grab one of these rioters and arrest them. I think there was over 80. The problem is you arrest 80 of these people, and then guess what? And then guess what happens when you arrest 80 of them, right? They're right back out on the street. And also the police have their hands tied because of the wonderful agreement that Eric Adams and at the time Police Commissioner Ed Caban agreed to with ACLU that basically said you can't do anything as a cop, and you could be. I mean, there's certain offenses that they have to call a captain for in order to make an arrest. You understand what kind of position you put police officers in? Normally, protests go great, parades go great. You're just there for presence and to keep the peace. In an event like this, all bets are off because these people are violent. You have violent people in this group. And LA was even worse. LA has been worse. Here's Anthony DiMaggio. Says it's rumored that Mike Spano will be on a ticket with Governor Hochul as our new lieutenant governor, which means that Nick Spano will be going back to Albany. That would be a train wreck for the people of New York. Yeah, if they're going to let this kind of stuff happen. Captain Sloppy says, I mean, come on, Sal, we got open carry for bricks nowadays. yeah. They're gonna carry bricks instead of firearms. They have them on this side. They're just carrying it as you see them walking with the bricks on their belts. I mean, at a certain point, yeah. Hello there, Lily. Lily says hi. At a certain point, you have to draw the line, and I don't think, Governor Hochul is the answer. Eric Adams, who's getting puff pieces written about himself, and Jessica Tisch, the police commissioner, the frolicking billionaire. Look, they keep writing puff pieces for them. I don't know if the New York Post or Newsday or I don't know if they're going to have a position on their board for Eric Adams, Jessica Tisch. But what they're saying and what's going on in the street are complete opposites. It's pure chaos. And by the way, the police officers, why don't they speak to the rank and file in the NYPD and ask them, what do you think of the job Eric Adams and Jessica Tisch is doing? And by the way, if you do say this, it comes with the knowledge of, well, you won't be punished if you tell us whatever it is what you have to say. Then you'll see the truth. Because the truth is, like I know, and now my phone blows up with so many cops that are just under duress under this administration, the morale is in the toilet. If you think working 12-hour shifts, now there's no days off this weekend, by the way. So that's a usual thing when these riots happen. You're not allowed to take a day off unless you're on vacation or you're out sick or it was scheduled for you to be off or something prior to this. But you're not allowed to have off, and what's going to happen next is the days off. They're going to say no days off. Everybody, all hands on deck, kind of like it was for 9/11, but that was under a different circumstance. And these are riots. Okay, and here, this is Jessica Tisch here. The department is expert in policing protests. Commissioner Jessica Tisch calmly explained in a weekend call with the feds. We have lots of practices at it, and our cops are the best in the world. It is our responsibility to maintain safety and order on our streets, and we will not abdicate that responsibility. Do you think what you're seeing in the last 48 hours, you think the NYPD could go at it alone with the, I think, overwhelming amount of people that are in the streets, some that are extremely violent, by the way? You think that having cops that are under duress, that are threatened with transfers and threatened with discipline if they come 2 minutes late or don't have a whistle or under duress by this woman and this mayor, you think that's going to also bode well for the rank and file and the troops that are out in the street trying to protect people's safety and their own? That is going to be the answer. The Post won't tell you that. The Post also doesn't want to cover another subject that I'm about to talk about, but they won't even broach this. If you keep writing these puff pieces, before you write a puff piece, I don't know if they're going to be board members of the Post and all these other news organizations, then go to the rank and file in the street without threat of them being disciplined or transferred or have any action taken against them. by Jessica Tisch. Speak to them and ask them, what is your real thoughts on Jessica Tisch and Eric Adams and how they're treating the men and women in the police department? Just find out. Go on the man on the street and ask without any fear of retribution. See what the real answers are, because you'll find that it's the absolute opposite of what these people are writing. And my heart goes out to you guys in the street. Hang in there, and you do what you have to do. But I would not risk my career or my future trying to protect Eric Adams or Jessica Tisch. Wink, wink. A lot of line of duties could occur out there, just so you understand. Line of duty injuries. And, that might teach these people a lesson if they think this kind of abuse is going to go on. And, another problem, too, shame on the legislation in New York City, of course, that favors the rioting. The ACLU that got this bill passed. Shame on you guys. You're part of that problem. You're the biggest part of the problem, because as quick as they bring these people in is as quick as they come out. Mass arrest, it's all going to be declined prosecutions anyway. Samara Cohen says money talks. That's right. And she also says that Jessica Tisch was terrible at DSNY, which is Department of Sanitation, which I believe Jessica Tisch still believes she's part of. She actually said something the other day about that on Twitter, on X, that she's talking about my sanitation department. I mean, really, lady, you're not the sanitation commissioner anymore. Stay Trained Up says it needs to be replaced with what was. The NYPD was the best of the best. How the heck does a woman with no police experience obtain this position? Quick answer. My guess, money. Money. She's rich. She's a frolicking billionaire police commissioner. Stay Trained Up says, good news, though, Sal. Jim Walden advised if elected, you and Marlon and those that have been unfairly terminated will be rehired effective immediately. You know something? I read something about them having this issue of if they've run out of personnel, they're going to go into the probationary police officers. Those are the ones in the police academy, start using recruits and all of that. And some people have a problem with that. That was always on the table. I don't know if you guys know that, because during 9/11, they were used. So they could always be used. The problem is somebody brought up, here it is, Mayor Adams' administration has internally floated a doomsday scenario where probation officers would be called on to don riot gear and back up the NYPD during the mushrooming protest against Trump's immigration crackdown. Probation union brass are furious. But this was done during 9/11. It's not that like they haven't done this before. The problem here would be, why not just rehire all those cops that Eric Adams terminated because they didn't want to subject themselves to a mandate that was revoked in the courts, and a judge in New York State stated and ruled that they must be rehired immediately. But Eric Adams, with back pay and benefits. But Eric Adams, what does he do? Keeps fighting that case. The MAGA mayor, the blue MAGA mayor, telling people he's bringing up Martin Luther King rhetoric when these people are throwing bricks at his cops. Mr. I'm playing every side of the board. That is the truth of what's going on today. But with all of this being said, and please stay safe out there, all the men and women in the police department, and keep, like I said, things get rough. There's always a line of duty injury. But you didn't hear that from me. Speaking of the police department, though, the reason we have all these issues is, what do we have? We have the worst upper echelon probably in the history in the NYPD and also in the New York City mayor's administration. Why? We have a little incident that occurred over the weekend. I touched up on this on the last show, and there's more info now. Enter someone in the fray. And this is, oh, by the way, here he is. This is Jimmy Rodriguez, the self-admitted criminal mob associate. Jimmy Rodriguez is an individual that's been known to the police department for many years. He is friends with, I don't know, virtually anyone and everyone. He is also the former owner of Jimmy's Bronx Cafe, where everything and anything happened there. Major League Baseball banned their players from being there because they called it unsavory characters. Actually, no. There was 14 people that were indicted coming out of there from the DA. There was an unsolved murder there. I mean, everything that shouldn't be going on happened there. But Jimmy's been making the rounds also, doing shows and stuff, trying to reshape his image, I guess, or the image of what happened after Connoisseur was shut down. But just to give you a little rundown, the police department has this rule that what they actually said I violated. So they said that you cannot wrongfully and knowingly associate with someone who's reasonably believed to have engaged in or likely to have engaged in criminal activity. That's a criminal association clause. They, in my own case, in their own testimonies, have not defined what criminal association is, what knowingly is, what reasonably believed to have engaged in is. They just say somebody that has a record you shouldn't be hanging around. Jimmy hangs around. Look at the likes of who he's around. There's Pat Lynch, the former PBA president. Martine Matarazzo, right there in the middle, who just recently was hanging out at this troubled place he has now. She is the chief of training. She's a 3-star chief, whose father, by the way, was the OCCB chief when Jimmy's Cafe was around and would have been in charge of ordering the March raids, which are raids on your nightclubs and restaurants if there are multiple violations or issues brewing. That never happened. But Jimmy is an eccentric restaurant presario, hangs around all these people, Tish James, it just, the list goes on, Eric Adams, but he's a friend of many NYPD executives, but clearly that would be in violation of their own rule. Well, over the weekend at Sobro Gardens, his new place, 26 Bruckner in the Bronx, there he is in that circle being arrested. But what happened here was there was an incident that occurred, and there's more details I could definitively tell you about. So an incident occurred there after 1 a.m. or this past Friday, which would have been Saturday morning. Someone outside this place had a verbal dispute with 4 male individuals, unknown who they are. When all of a sudden this dispute became 4 individuals open fist or closed fist punching this individual, the victim. This then led to one of them stabbing this individual in the shoulders, in the arm, in the neck, and in the face. Okay. There was a canvass conducted. Obviously, this victim then had to run. He was found in the middle of the street. He then went to the Dunkin' Donuts. They surveyed this area. They looked for these 4 individuals. Nobody knows who they are. I'm sure somebody does know who they are. And there were cameras there. And apparently, Mr. Jimmy Rodriguez was there. And when the police asked him about this, he said, "Do you know who I am?" Refused to give the cameras. And of course, this victim then went to the hospital. Here he is wearing the Fidel Castro garbs he got. This was at a Bronx ball he recently went to. I also have video of him describing what he's going to do. I mean, should the police department be hanging around this individual? But the moral here, the story is, he's not showing the camera. I don't know if the police department had the right to even handcuff him. That's a whole nother subject. I'm sure it's something else occurred that's not being said or not officially being written anywhere. Also, were any cops off duty in this place when this happened? I mean, look, let's just play this video. This is Jimmy talking about his garbs that he's going to wear, his communist garbs.
So I'm about to head to the Bronx ball, and I'm wearing Fidel Castro's fatigues that he gave to me over 20 years ago. It's never been an exhibit, and I can't wait to see what people say when they see me wearing it walking in. Here we go.
So he wore the Fidel Castro garbs, a communist, someone who didn't like this country. And the police department, Martine Matarazzo, Raul Stevenson, the list could go on, or Joe Ayala, all these different people. These are just some of the names. Oh, the chief of patrol, Raul Rivera, Chief Rivera, all these people that have been around him or are still around him have no problem with this. So you don't associate with a political consultant, but you're going to associate with not only the self-admitted criminal mob associate, But the fact that he's okay with communism, and I mean, I don't know anyone else that would walk around in those garbs. I don't know if this is a joke or whatever, but something serious went down at Sobro Gardens. This sounds like some kind of cover-up is ensuing here, whether it's by the police department, by the Jimmy, by the people that committed this heinous act. Now, one article has been written. Nobody is covering this stuff. Not in the media. There's a victim that was stabbed, jumped by 4 individuals that may or may not be known to Jimmy or Sobro Gardens, and also any off-duty NYPD executive that may have frequented this place at the very same time or has known about this. Obviously, this phone call would have went to the borough chief, that individual in the Bronx. He frequents this place. Raul Stevenson frequents this place. Martin Matarazzo frequents this place. And the question goes to now Jessica Tisch. What are you doing about this? Because this is a massive incident that nobody wants to talk about. We're worried about riots. I understand. There's all this other stuff. But here we are. Here's a major assault, one that they say that, stuff like this doesn't happen. Remember, crime is down. And it happens at the place where the NYPD's golden child, who somehow associate with this guy every day, well, we're not going to do anything or say anything about it. This report is open right away. Right now, they're looking for these people. So this is an open report. It's not closed. You know, the 4-0 squad should have this, the detectives. So we'll see where this goes. But in the morning of this interview was released where Jimmy finally, first time I've heard him address Con Sofrito, the former place where they had the human trafficking report. They had no C of O in the shed. They were a fire trap. They had no fire suppression system. They also had like rat excrements in the food. But he stayed open, and Letitia James loved going there. Darcel Clark, all the who's who was hanging out up there. Now Jimmy is apparently a Trump guy, if you hear what he's saying, which is funny because I guess he let his buddy off the hook. But here he is addressing what happened at Con Sofrito. Let's see what he had to say.
So I was involved with Con Sofrito, and they went after Eric Adams. So what do you think they did? They came after me. Why? Because why is Eric Adams hanging out at the Bronx? Because I know Eric for 30 years and he's a good friend of mine. So anybody's a friend of Eric is going to go, they're going to attack. So it's crazy how all of these things come about. Because, and even people couldn't believe that just Eric is just sitting there, the mayor of the city of New York, just sitting in the Bronx, just sitting outside having a drink. It was interesting.
Yeah. So that claim is outrageous. We all know why they closed that place down, why they attacked that place. And he wasn't even the owner on paper. It was Richard Caban, the owner, because the brother, Eddie Caban, a police commissioner, they were always there, and he allegedly owned the place. That just shows you the whole thing is a scheme. Look, the reason that place closed is because everything in there was illegal. The majority of that stuff was illegal. It should have never been open. They had all these problems, but yet the police department was there every single night, hanging out there. And that's what held up this place to stay open. Okay? Not to mention that his former partner was picked up for human trafficking there, like right after he got rid of the place, so he gave his half to Richard Caban. You can read about that in City and State. It's just unbelievable how the NYPD is encapsulated around this guy. We're not going to let this go. There's a victim out there, and once again, the history of this notorious character follows him. And now his new place has the same problems the old place had. So again, should the police department be associating with this individual? You be the judge. But if you've been terminated by the police department because they didn't like who you were associating with, you have one hell of a case. Jessica Tisch, you should be addressing this because it just shows the ineptitude of you. You one of, by far, right now, you're in the top 5 worst police commissioners. You may not be as bad as Eddie Caban yet or Tom Donlin, but you're up there. And, of course, anyone who's been underneath the thumb of Eric Adams. To be continued. This is disgusting and disturbing. And if you read this or hear about this, you won't hear the truth other than here because no one wants to report the news the way it should be. And, again, the police department should not be at this place. And what really did transpire that night, because a cover-up looks like it's happening here because nobody's talking, no media coverage, and you wonder which NYPD figure frequented this place that night? It's a question that everybody wants to know, and those cameras will show it. We'll see if they do the nuisance and abatement order to get this place closed, just like they did con Sofrito, and try to solve this case. To be continued. But now to have my guest on, I want to show you first. My guest today is a former corrections captain that's retired, and she's running for District 11 legislator seat, so in Orange County. So let me show you the campaign video that announced her running.
Hello, friends and neighbors of Orange County, District 11 town of Wallkill. My name is Deshanda Carter, and I am honored to be before you today as a candidate for county legislator. Make sure your voice is heard and counted. Vote Deshanda Carter on June 24th. New and unadulterated. Hello, friends and neighbors of.
That's pretty creative. That is, I like that ad. That's pretty funny, but it's also good. You know, it's a feel good commercial. Here's some of her photos. That's her in uniform. She was in corrections. She did over 2 decades in it. So, and she retired as a captain. So, without any further ado, let me bring on Deshanda Carter, former corrections, retired corrections captain, now running for elected office. Deshanda, welcome to the Sal Greco Show.
Yes,
How are you?
I wanted to turn to make it better. Hi, how are you?
I'm good. I'm fired up after seeing how crooked the NYPD could be, and I'm sure you have your story from corrections.
Listen, I heard. I was over here making some facial gestures, but a lot of information I was not aware of. But thank you for highlighting and providing this information for those who are not aware. Although I no longer live in New York City, to be totally honest with you, I don't keep up with all of the unfortunate news in the city. So I stay a little away from that. But I do remember Jimmy's Cafe because I did live in the Bronx. I'm a Bronx girl. I moved from the Bronx to Orange County. So I do remember when Jimmy's Cafe was on Fordham Road.
And you would remember there were plenty of incidents there, and then somehow he himself or the place was never held accountable, and his place was never closed by the New York City Police Department. And his excuse is always, well, all these people were there and I was picked on. If you hear these interviews, it's constant race baiting. He sounds like Eric Adams, just the Puerto Rican version. And his distorted view is that it's all ethnic based stuff, and that, oh, we weren't in law enforcement. They meaning the police department, viewed me or viewed us as the enemy. But he says he's now friends with police. He's got all, and here's the truth is the police department wasn't doing that because of his ethnic background. There's reports of felonies occurring left and right at every facet of Jimmy's Cafe. There was a murder, 2 murders are unsolved there. The detectives are still, the guys that worked on that case still don't know what happened there. It's just funny. And this is who the police department hangs around. They love this guy, but then they'll judge other people, dish out discipline, terminate people when they have to look at themselves in the mirror. This is law enforcement. Because in my opinion, Deshanda, you're either going to say, if you want to hang around this guy, that's great. Because I don't really care what this guy does. But if you're a cop, then you need to put your badge, take your badge off, your shoulder, your chest, right? Go throw it in the garbage and go be a gangster. Because this is not working out. There's a serious problem here. And they're doing something with this place and this guy, and they're all staying quiet. And that's the issues we have in here. And I'm sure, I just want to touch up on this because it's just bothering me that there's a victim. They're quick to write about Jessica Tisch being so great and Eric Adams, but they won't write about a victim that got stabbed in a place where they all hang out and love.
Well, when you say they won't write about a victim, that's journalism, right? So who's behind making these reports? They can find out if they really wanted to, but
if I could find out, they could find out. But apparently,
and that's what I'm saying. So it's not really the law enforcement because they're not gonna snitch on themselves, right? Somebody somewhere knows the information and they're just not disseminating. So that's the real key.
Yeah, that's a problem. That is a problem. But enough with Jimmy's Cafe. Deshanda,
Yeah.
you're now running in Orange County for legislator. But before that, tell us about your history, your time in corrections, because you did over 2 decades. You retired as a captain. You knew my friend, Norman Seabrook. So
Yes, I
tell
love
us a
Norman.
little bit about your career before we get into how you ran. Now you're running for office.
So I started my career with the New York City Department of Corrections back in July of 1998. I spent 10 years as an officer before I transitioned into becoming a captain. And at the time of being an officer, Norman Seabrook was my union president. And as I stated before, I love Norman. He did a tremendous amount of work for officers at the time that he was there. And I'm very grateful for him for that. Our variable supplement, he personally has come to my aid on numerous occasions while I was actually an officer. And to be perfectly honest with you, when it was time for me to get promoted, I was so scared to go into a different union because I only wanted Norman to fight for me because I knew, he would definitely bust his gun if he needed to for what was right. So, after I did become a captain and join the captains union, the CCA, we did have some great people there too. Frank, and I said Frank. I can't even think he just retired. Patrick, he just retired, and he was also a great force to be reckoned with in our rank of captain. So I did have a great career. I'm very grateful for the career that I had, but I'm grateful that I got out when I did. Just like any department, there is its own cliques, there's own division, there's own corruption.
Mm.
Um, so with that being said, as long as you stay the course and keep your heart pure, then you should be able to stay away from it. But sometimes it's hard because you get dragged in and pulled down easily. But I was able to do my 20 years, get out unhinged without having to worry about being brought down in any cases, any lawsuits, any excessive uses of force. So I think I did my time successfully because not too many people can say the same.
That's true because we've seen a lot of people get caught up. I mean, here, Samara Cohen says, DOC, the most thankless job of them all. You're doing time. Churrasco said, I wouldn't do that job even if you paid me.
Well, listen, they did pay well. I will say that we do get paid well, but I think it was mentioned. The one thing that they don't do is make sure that the people are well, right?
Mm.
They don't take care of the people because you have people commenting that they would not do this job. Not many will, and currently, not many want to. So the ones that you have there, you need to make sure that they are doing, that they're well taken care of. And I think they've gotten away from that. The stresses that job puts on a person, the mental health issues that it puts on a person, the toll it takes on a person's family life. We sacrifice so much and nobody gives a damn, especially not the, as you say, upper echelon. They only care about numbers. They only care about numbers and statistics and who's taking over and federal oversight. That's what they care about.
Yeah, and the federal oversight, that stemmed from all these cases from years prior. And they've always kicked this bucket down the road until now. Rikers is now in receivership. Now the feds took it over. Whether this is a good thing or a bad thing, I mean, Serena Townsend, who I have on all the time, and she's right now she's a defense counselor. She was also a prosecutor, and she was also commissioner in corrections, and she was screaming about this for years that the Fed should have took it over. Rikers had all these different issues. She had officers coming to her. It's just nonstop. The conditions there. No one wanted to ever be, have any accountability. That's what it really boils down to. So, and it's just like right here, this is an article I see. The use of force, state and other rates of violence. Oh, what is that? Something just came up. So the use of force, state and other rates of violence, self-harm, and deaths in custody are demonstrably worse than when the consent judgment in the landmark Nunez versus City of New York case that sparked the push for reform on Rikers Island came down in 2015. You were there for all of this. I mean, so like, how do you feel about your time dealing with Rikers, and then now how it ends up in receivership? Do you think this is a good thing or a bad thing? Did you see this coming? Because you were there and had to deal with all of these cast of characters back then that, you know, politically speaking, we're using this as a hot potato. No one wanted to solve the issue.
So, so let me just say, initially when I started, I used to work in the Central Punitive Segregation Unit, and that's what, you know, most people know as the being 24-hour lockdown, 23-hour lockdown, and it was, I don't remember what governed it, but they had to put the cameras in. We didn't have cameras when I first started, so then there was a order that I forgot the terminology that it was, but whatever the case was, we had to put the cameras in, and the cameras were on us 24/7 because of this particular court order. So that's when it started. And so, like I said, I started in 1998. I think the cameras came in like 2000, 2001, if I'm not mistaken. I could be off with the year, but no one has control. No one has control. Everybody thinks they can come in and make it better, but it's so far gone. It needs to be revamped from top to bottom. And it's not just, okay, who's sitting in administration, because everyone that's coming behind the next person is just tearing the Band-Aid off to put a new Band-Aid on. So would the feds make it any better? They have to start from scratch.
So that would be basically starting from the bottom up. Here's this article from 2017. Joseph Ponte was appointed by Mayor Bill de Blasio, oh boy, 3 years ago to end the chaos at Rikers Island, is expected to step down as correction commissioner on Friday, according to people with knowledge of his plans. The decision came amid a swirl of revelations about mismanagement and dysfunction at the highest level of New York City's jail agency. That's that's basically attributed to what you're saying, that you saw the dysfunction firsthand, and how could they handle this problem? This is a problem that's, I think, correctable. I mean, Bernie Carrick, God rest his soul, at one point fixed Rikers, and then when he left, it started going downhill again, and then it's led to this, and nobody wants accountability. I don't see anybody stepping in and saying, oh, I think I have a plan, let's execute it. It's just whatever.
Well, I think that's the problem. So many people think they have a plan, and there is no execution. Everybody has a lot of talk. They talk, but it doesn't work. They have to realize this is not something that one person can come in and fix. It's not. And at the end of the day, I loved Carrick. He was a great commissioner. For him to, like, it was a big thing because he was PD and then he came over into corrections, and they were like, well, how could he understand? But he was a good guy in my opinion, right? So again, this is my personal opinion. As I stated to your assistant earlier, that the problem with corrections that I see when they come to choosing individuals to be commissioners or to be the boss, they don't choose from within, and that's the problem, because you can't take a person from Maine and expect them to know how to run the largest jail system in the country. They have no idea. So my conversation was, they need to keep the people from within. So from a person who's worked as an officer, captain, who's come up through the ranks and who understands the trials, the tribulations, the issues, the malfunctions, where we can fix things. They know that firsthand because they were able to sit on a B post and work inside a cell area. See, you don't learn the jail by sitting behind a desk as a secretary, or sitting in a commissioner's office, being a driver. You don't learn that way. You don't learn because you were a sheriff in some backwoods town. That doesn't qualify you to come and think you're going to change the New York City Department of Correction and make it better. So yes, I was there. I can definitely tell you, assaults were real. I was the intake captain. When I retired, I had 4 surgeries because of all of the uses of forces that I had. but I stayed. I never went out. As far as like a year or 2 years, I did most of my surgeries when I retired because the department was very strict on allowing you to heal. They would try to medically separate you. So here it is. I'm fighting a job day in, day out to provide for my family, a thankless job, right? To
Yeah.
provide for my family. And now I get hurt and you're rushing me to come back to work. And if I don't come back to work in the timely fashion, which you think I should, even though my doctor is telling me no, you need to wait, people were getting terminated left and right off of medical issues. So for me, I know that personally. So that's why I chose and opted just to hang in there, and I did all of my procedures when I retired. It wasn't enough to get 3/4, but I did. I was able to get myself together without the stresses. Because imagine trying to heal mentally, physically, emotionally, right? And still have to worry about whether or not you're going to have a job.
That's true. I mean, the police department has the same problems. But what you're saying also, you can also attribute this. There's now officers that they're doing where they're saying you're working 12, whatever it is, 1 day, 2 days straight with no relief. And they think that that's going to be like, this is their solution to, we don't have enough personnel. We have people that are out, that are sick and hurt because they've been assaulted by these prisoners. But now you are going to be tasked with working 2 straight days. I mean, what are your thoughts on something like that? Sounds crazy, but it's actually happening today.
So before I answer your question, one of your questions at the bottom said, "Did I vote for Adams?" But to answer your question, sir, no, I did not because I do not live in New York City any longer. I do not participate in any voting for the New York City at all. That's why I'm running for a county legislator in Orange County, New York.
That's right.
So to your point, he took me back and to say, kind of threw me off with what you asked me. What I just rewind it just slightly a little bit.
So, yeah, so I was just saying is there's officers right now in corrections that are
12
working
2 hour days, yeah. So
crazy.
so I have some coworkers that I'm still friendly with and some people who I speak with, and unfortunately they have no life. Like they can't commit to anything. They're always tired. Like I said to you before, it's it's very stressful. That's all I can tell you, and without saying anything else. And because they need a job. Look what we're going through financially, tariffs, everything is going up. So can they afford to leave a job
No.
that's providing them with the type of income that they're accustomed to, that sustains their family? So what do? Do they walk away and they're in their 18th year? They're in their 17th year. They're just this close to the door. So they have to stay. What do? There's no
So
other option. And guess what? If
yeah.
no one has compassion, so there was a movie that just came out, the Tyler Perry movie Straw. Let's just imagine a group of people, men and women, with their final straw in corrections. You know what the crash out could possibly be? A mother, a father who just hasn't seen their kids. The kids is all just acting out. The wife is threatening to leave him. Just the amazing things that go on behind the scenes. That's why I was would talk about it, because no one knows. So it'll be that one day I come to work and I can't stay. Cap, I can't stay. Dep, I can't stay. I have to go home. There's no empathy. All they care about is the body working that post. The
The number.
humanization is gone. It's like they expect people to be robotic. And when they crash out, they want to discipline them.
That's the
So
name of the game.
no, I did not vote for Adams. No, I mean, to be honest with you, I don't follow him because I really don't care, to be honest with you, because it doesn't affect me, but it does affect the people that I know and care about in the system. So I tend to listen more from the perspective of the officer or the captains that are currently working for corrections versus following the news and what he's doing.
Yeah.
So I'm an ear for them.
I get it. Well, I needed to actually find out because there's a lot of corrections people I know, and they always ask, can you, somehow get someone on that's either worked with us or no, because that 24-hour thing where they're working 2 days straight with that is got to be, there is no morale in corrections. And that's why you're seeing the issues that are taking place inside of the jail itself in Rikers and other spots, because you can't ask someone to work nonstop, no days off. And it's constant too. You keep getting those slips, or you're working this shift and expect this person to be functioning in every, day-to-day operations. That's very, not only stressful, I'd say it's unhuman, like almost. And,
let's call it what it is. Their job is security. How can you secure anything, anyone, if you're not functioning properly?
Yeah, true. That's how is this person even getting home? Driving home could be an accident. They're working.
So let me just to that point. There was, I do believe, when I was working, there was an incident. I do recall a gentleman driving home from doing a double. He was really tired. There were a lot of overtime, and he died. He had a car accident. The same thing. I do believe there was a police officer not too long ago who died on the Palisades Parkway. He was driving home from doing overtime, and he passed away from being tired. These people don't take these things into consideration at all. As I stated before, as long as you show up, that's all we care about. As long as we have a body.
And this is what Marlon Bethel chimes in. He's part of the Finance and Filter too. He said it best. He said it's dehumanizing. That's what I agree with it. I think this is dehumanizing. And I'm a big proponent of rank and file people. So when I see not these executives, because they're out there hanging out at Jimmy's, but like the rank and file people that are on this job that are being used as a stepping stool for some of these executives, you gotta have a human aspect. Someone who's working 24 hours plus, doesn't see his family, doesn't go home, could risk going home crashing, and you're asking them to be like basically security guard in the most, like one of the most violent places. All these, but Rikers in particular is got a lot of issues, and you just they have to work, and we don't care. We don't care about your feelings, your family, nothing. Oh, by the way, when you go home, you're coming back a few hours after. Because just because you went home for a few hours, we're giving you another slip. That's what's going on. But people don't hear about this. They just hear, yeah, Rikers is going in a receivership. Done. We don't hear anything else. It's silence.
Well, corrections as a whole, too. I was saying that not just New York City Department of Corrections, but the corrections federally, statewide, they're all in the same situation.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody wants to do this job. Between the assaults on staff alone and the mandate that they have, it's ridiculous. As one of your viewers said, it is dehumanizing. They expect people to be robots, and that can't happen.
Yeah.
So what do we do about it? What somebody has to figure this out, because at the end of the day, if all of these people decide to walk off this job and quit, what are they going to do? What are they going to do?
It is nothing. And then if they try to get another job like NYPD, just know the same treatment is actually waiting for you at that job. So if you go from being in corrections to the police department, just know that treatment that you got there, it's kind of become an umbrella. Oh, yeah, it's the same thing here. Don't worry about it. We're waiting for you. We'll be handing over those slips too. There's some of them striking. Enough is enough. But you can't strike also because it's contracts.
So that's what happened with the state. I don't know if you were aware, a couple of months ago, they had a big strike up in for state corrections, and they fired a lot of people. Hochul, she was like, okay, you guys go back to work. Some people ended up going back to work, but a lot of people didn't, and they ended up getting fired and terminated.
Look at this. New York fires over 2,000 corrections officers as prison strike ends after 22 days. This was in March of this year. And not only that, she's on the Hill today getting grilled. She doesn't even know victims' names that are victims of all the illegal immigrants she's happily accepting under Eric Adams in New York City and have all issues in the state, and she doesn't know any of the victims' names. But that's your governor. She knows best. She doesn't even know victim's name. But that shows you what you're dealing with these people. I like some. And to
go back, I'm sorry, before I lose my thought, and to go back to what you said about when Adams fired all of the police officers for this COVID,
Oh yeah,
the what the
mandate.
shot. The same thing with corrections. There was an abundance of people who they terminated, who they did not hire back as well. So that's I think all around agency wide that they should be fighting that to get those people who want to come back. But I'm pretty sure those people who decided that they did not, they've been out of the loop for so long, probably don't even want to go back. To be honest with you.
Yeah, I would venture to say probably more than likely, but at least they should be able to leave in good standing. Which means if once they hit their 20th year, whatever it is, if you're tier 2, be 20th year, then you're allowed to start getting a pension or benefits. Right now, they don't have that. They were separated, I think, illegally, and the judge even told them they have to rehire him. But Eric Adams, Mr. MAGA, blue MAGA mayor, everyone loves him all of a sudden now. If you're in the MAGA camp, he says, "Well, I'm going to keep fighting these cases." And plenty of these people, by the way, Deshanda, many of them are Trump supporters. I'd say an overwhelming. I'd probably say well in the 90%. And Mr. Blue MAGA mayor says, "Well, I don't care about that. I care about me because I can't lose. Because it's bad enough he lost this Rikers thing, eats him up alive because he wants to, he presents himself like I'm like some kind of RoboCop. And this guy was like a zero as a police officer. He's done nothing for anyone other than himself and his cronies. And now if he was dealt a defeat, he doesn't know how to handle defeat. That's his problem. So with this issue, with hiring all these workers back, he just can't let go, because then it would be, oh, well, you lost that, Eric. And then that's why he won't do it. That's my opinion. I see it that way. I've studied this guy. I've known this guy in the past. This is how he is. So that's why these workers who could right now fill in all these spots, if you actually rehired them, that you're having all these staffing issues, he won't do it. And that would easily help the burden of these officers that are brave enough to work and have to work 2 days in a row, which is absolutely insane. It's unhuman. I'm sorry. It is dehumanizing. I mean, Rob Lucas shared Deshanda. He's part of the Finance Unfiltered too. He's co-host of the Executive Perspective. He's a retired chief in the NYPD. He said, "I'm sure the executives are not working 24 hours straight."
And neither are their secretaries and their drivers and whoever else is in their administration. I'm sure they're not either.
And look, KB says, "Can't wait for the de Blasio jail in all 5 borough plans come to fruition." That'll be another nightmare, Deshanda. You're going to have all new jails in the 5 borough. I don't even know if they started.
They did. I believe Brooklyn House, because I also worked at Brooklyn House when it was there, which on Atlantic Avenue, and they started construction with that facility. So I mean,
wow, that's
I'm gonna tell you, I'm opposed to them being in the boroughs. I prefer it to be centralized, but that's a debate for another day, because some people feel it's more convenient for family and family and friends to be able to, and attorneys to make it to see their individuals. However, being centralized, you have everything there in case something goes wrong. You have enough staff to address the issue in one location. So my personal opinion, again, is that I think
what's going on there? We'll have to reconnect with her. I have actually here. There's more comments coming here.
sorry, I don't know. So
no, go
am
ahead.
I here? Oh, okay. So yeah, I think that if it becomes a centralized hub, stay a centralized hub, but it just needs to be broken down and rebuilt from the ground up. Especially some of the facilities, the jails are outdated, the cells don't operate properly, the inmates can pop in and out, and it's definitely not safe. So you making a tour and you're in an area where maintenance hasn't come, right? These cells can be popped open. So imagine 24 hours, 48 hours, no sleep, in a housing area where you're actually working on inmates and you have not rested, and they could pop out at any time. Are you really alert? No, you're subject to being hurt. That's what you're doing.
Yeah. I have some comments here, which is good. You're generating a reaction. People, nobody talks about this stuff for corrections. Right? Chronicles of the Collapse says, if things go bad this summer, it would be ludicrous to not consider rehiring those who are waiting to return. I 100% agree with you, Chronicles. Next one, I can't really see what that says. I think they probably don't want your name to be, they don't want the management to see their name, but it says officer and Rikers are working 16 tour at, 16, meaning that's 2 tours straight every day.
Correct.
Without meal relief, even. It's really
Yes.
bad, and the officers don't have a voice.
So with the meal relief, that was something that was an issue too. We get paid. We don't get a lunch break. We work. So if you get a meal relief, you're lucky. If not, you just put in a 40-minute no meal slip. So you think after I've worked 16 hours, giving me pay is going to substitute the fact that I haven't had nutrition for 16 hours? And I'm doing this every day because they don't have staff to do the meal release. But if they bring them secretaries and all that administrative staff out to do the meal release, then maybe they can eat.
You know, there was a guy that campaigned for mayor, Eric Adams, who said that he was going to have less administrative staff and we're going to have more of the cops out in the street. This guy has ballooned the New York City Police Department administrative staff. I think that number has just gotten wider with these no-name groups he's made. Like, was that the Deputy Commissioner of Public Information's office had 80 cops there. You're like, 80 cops for what? For what? You need like four cops, a lieutenant, or that's it, or a sergeant, and the deputy commissioner himself. But yet these and they're doing the same. He runs. See, at the time, corrections, he had put Tim Pearson as a deputy mayor of like public safety, which is a made-up position. And even though Phil Banks was the deputy mayor, he was the deputy / head advisor for Eric Adams as far as this group goes. He was actually telling corrections what to do. He was actually interfering in disciplinary matters with corrections and with the police department. And it's the guy's never spent one day in corrections, Tim Pearson, but somehow he made all these decisions. So all you're seeing is the administration stepping in, screwing things up. They have no idea what they're doing. And then the administration itself inside of corrections, who is self-impressed people, don't do what's right. And they like to stay, we're going to bloat those secretary office, all this, but we're not going to take care of the rank and file because out of hell with them. They could work 3 days straight. I did it for 1 week when I was an officer 15 years ago. That's what's going on. That's why I see it. Well,
The problem with that is, like I said, they need to have the upper echelon come from within corrections. You cannot come from outside and make decisions when you don't know what the inside of the institution looks like. And I'm not talking about the physical structure. I'm talking about the day-to-day operations, how from working from roll calls to being assigned to a post, to going to a post, working a post, being taken off a post, going to shutting down. We have to shift reduce the post because we don't have enough staff. You can't do that if you've never worked in this environment. That, to me, is one of the biggest problems. I don't care if you worked in a jail in Maine. I don't care if you was the chief, the warden, nothing outside of New York City. It's not the same.
Exactly.
It's absolutely not.
I agree with you. You definitely sound like not only these issues, you'd be perfect for someone. I'm just saying, I like this because people don't hear this. Corrections like the ignored agency, yet Eric Adams sits, he's doing nothing for them. He care less. He's worried about himself and what fancy suit, what other crime he's going to be let off from. That's what he's really worried about. He's not worried about corrections. He never was. And to have these people he had that other moron as the commissioner that now is at DCAS, Molina. That guy never spent a day in corrections. He was another one of these guys that was hanging around him with Anthony Miranda and company. They're all rabble rousers, and they're all doing things on the side. Molina's had some issues, but yet he put him as the corrections commissioner, and corrections went straight. You thought it was going downhill. This guy just threw it all in the toilet. He rubber stamped everything, and then he ran away because remember they had a trip that he took that they can't explain if it was taxpayer funded. They went to go get they went to like Europe on a trip, and it's taxpayer funded, and he went to go find these rifles that, remember, in corrections, you don't use rifles. So what was he doing there? What was that about? But he used taxpayer money. Everyone forgets about that. Molina definitely had no business being a corrections commissioner. It boils down to, I don't think it should be appointments. I think that you should like vote people in, I think, to be commissioner like a sheriff, because that's why you have these issues. This incompetent, corrupt mayor put his friends in charge, destroyed corrections. Nobody talks about it, but he destroyed corrections. And now he's putting the finishing touches. He could care less about any officer that doesn't sleep or, doesn't have relief because he's out, running around. He thinks he's going to be mayor again for another 4 years. Yeah, KB says this. And Staten Island had the state jail out there. New York City could have bought a turnkey jail, but they let it get sold to a movie company.
Right. I think that was what Arthur Kill was, the jail that used to be out in Staten Island. I will say this about Molina's during that administration. I don't know. I'm gonna be devil's advocate just because I gotta. Maybe they were out there because ESU, they were out there looking, but I don't know why you need to go all the way to Europe to find some special rifles. But ESU does a lot of uses a lot of different weaponry. So I'm gonna be devil's advocate. I would try to fight for them on that one. But I'm gonna say this: I agree with you as far as being voted in. This way, people get to see who they're actually choosing. They have a voice, and that's important to have a voice. And this is why I'm running, because Eric Adams sounds like, when you say he's all about self, sounds like the person that I am actually in the primary with. He's about himself. So when you take people that's about themselves, you have to replace them with people who are for the people. And I like your idea. They definitely should have someone that comes in and votes. And again, not only just voting, but voting for people who have actually, this is the third or fourth time I've said it, who have actually walked the walk, talked the talk, and sat in the seat. Not someone who's come from another state.
So, I mean, Molina, who's not a corrections officer, shouldn't be the corrections commissioner. That's for starters. See, that's what I'm saying.
That's what I'm agreeing with you. I'm agreeing that, nepotism is real. It's very much real. And people, they get into position and their friends, hey, what can you do for me? Everybody want to hook their friends up. And I get it. It's a reality, because if you could, you would. But damn, have some idea of what's going on. And that's why I'm a stick and stand 10 toes down on what I'm saying, that you have to have the people who are knowledgeable, not just because you're my friend, because it's a reflection of me. If I put you in a position to come and work for me, and I know you don't know anything, the backlash it doesn't matter to you because you don't care. The backlash is going to come to me.
That's right. I say this though. If you want to give your friends a job, they can be an advisor. You don't have, and even that could fail, because you saw with Tim Pearson, everything Eric Adams touched, where that went. But like, you can make them advisors. You don't make them commissioners and they're like completely inept and just have no integrity and cannot handle that job. Jessica Tisch is not a cop, never was. She doesn't understand that culture, and it shows. And the police department morale is in the toilet. Why? He appointed a billionaire who has no business being a police commissioner, but you see with the end results. You want to hook up your donors. I mean, come on, man. Like, that's one of the issues. But,
and that goes back to what I'm saying, even with PD. They need to hire from the ground up. Even though I understand Eric Adams was a police officer, and I don't know his history, because like I said, I really don't. But I know he was in law enforcement. I know he was a police, and now he made his way through to mayor. But however, like you said, whoever's coming on should have worked in the police department to have some idea of what the ranking structure is, what really goes on. Just because I'm a billionaire, listen, no, I agree with you. I'm agree with you. Any agency, just like the chief of the fire department, the chief of the commissioner of sanitation, any entity where you have leadership, someone in the highest rank should have come from the bottom up because they're the only ones that know the ins and out of that agency, not someone from another state. It just doesn't make sense. Not someone from another tax bracket who's never gotten their hands dirty, who's never had to pull a trigger, who's never had to pull mace, who's never had to handcuff anyone. It just
That
doesn't make sense.
that doesn't make sense, but yet we see it over and over again. So we've been discussing your whole history, and you know a lot, and you're very knowledgeable, and you actually have some solutions. You ask the right questions. So it tells me you're ready for if you were to take political office. So now switching gears to that, because you're running to be the legislator of Orange County. So why don't we, get into that? Tell people what that role is, where that is exactly, who you're running against. Give us the whole spiel so people know about the position you're trying to be elected for, so that maybe you could bring the same solutions you have with corrections and that experience over to a political office where a lot of these people don't have any experience and just continue the corruption.
And let me tell you, this is the reason I by far am not. Uh, I didn't grow up to want to be to be in a political office by no means, but I just didn't like what I saw. I started going to the Democratic Committee meetings in my town after being retired for 7 years. I've done several things, like I'm an actress because if you Google me, right, I come up as a SAG actress. I'm an author. I'm an entrepreneur. I had a radio show. I've done a lot of things, and I did a lot of things because when I started corrections, I was 23 years old. I was a wife with a mother of two. Um, so I had to be mommy, and I had to be a wife, and I had to provide. So I didn't get to really expound on all of the talents and interests that I had. So when I retired, I touched base on this, I touched base on that. I had fun, and I do things because not because I need to get paid for them. I do things now because they're my interests and I enjoy. So with the political aspects, I started going to these Democratic committee meetings that we were having, and I just didn't like what I saw, the fact that there weren't enough people who looked like me in any position. Any position. So I said, no, well, we have to change this dynamic. And then I started realizing that the person that I'm in the primary with, which his name is Eric Valentin, he and his current administration up there in the town of Walk Hill, they all have been sitting in place for 26 plus years.
Oh boy.
26 plus years. And he's never been opposed. He's never been opposed. So when you talk about people, like when you say all of this corruption, like these little small towns, you would have a field day finding out the things that go on behind closed doors, right? So I just wanted to be an actual voice because after 26 years in a position, do you really still have the same drive and commitment that you did when you first started out? So I think that the town of Walk Hill needs someone who's going to be able to present a fresh ideas from different perspectives. We have an influx of people who are relocating from the city, New York City, and various areas because they're trying to save on costs. So we need someone who understands the living lifestyles of New York City and who has been in the country for a number of years so that we can bridge the gap and bring and forge community. And also make sure that someone with a background in law enforcement is able to see, because we have crime. They just don't, like you said, they just don't tell it. We have crime. We have a lot of issues that are not being brought to the forefront that even the constituents don't even know about because they want to keep things hush hush. So my job is to bring forth new laws to put in place to make sure that the community is aware of what's going on. And I'm going to be that voice and I'm going to fight Because that's one thing I know how to do. One thing corrections taught me how to do is to fight, and I'm ready for it.
I can see that because I see your knowledge and what you know. You all you kind of do is you transition that to well, I think our jobs were political anyway. Police, corrections. You're dealing in a political system, so I think it sharpens your skills to a point where if you were to get to run for office, anyone from those fields could conceivably handle it. Now, I don't expect people to become the Eric Adams, which is that's what you don't become from police into politics. But someone who actually transitions the right way and does it for the right reason, I would say we'll say the forecast on that would be you'd have an aspiring career as a politician where you do it's almost like giving back. You did all this time there. Now you're trying to, what you saw, you're going to bring to the people now. You're just protecting them in a different way and trying to change things for the future, which we couldn't do with cops or in corrections because you're always listening to another executive. You're tired of that, because these guys don't know what they're doing. But, I've been on the job 40 years. Same thing what you're dealing with. 26 years they've been in as a legislator. That's a long time. Somebody should tell them, hey, it could be a different thing. You've been here 26 years. Maybe you want to enjoy your life, but they don't. They want to hang on to power and corruption
and nepotism because he wasn't 20. He was 26 years as a councilman. He's running for legislator, but he has his son running as his councilman in the councilman seat that he once had.
Wow, it all runs in the family.
It all runs in the family. It all runs in the family. So they want to keep it. That's why I'm telling you, like it doesn't stop. Nepotism at its finest. And at the end of the day, we have to come in and filter it. And let people be aware of what's going on. Make them aware, because a lot of times, a lot of people that live in my particular town specifically, there is a lot of law enforcement, a lot of corrections, a lot of PD, a lot of city workers, and they're spending so much time commuting and working. They're not even aware of what's going on in the town, and no one is making it easy for them to be made aware. Like, hey, guess what? Amazon is coming, and they're building a new factory, and guess what? They don't want to pay taxes for 20 years. They don't even know.
That's a big issue. That's a big issue. I don't know how nobody's even talking about that.
Yeah, it was. It's been broadcast locally on the news. They just had a meeting 2 days ago. The people came out and they spoke against it. And again, that's why I did the baby. The baby is like the AI. It wasn't, somebody said it was a filter, but it's not a filter. It's apps and stuff like that. And that was one of the things that I speak about when I knock on the doors, that we need more technology training to be taught in the schools, right? So that they can get drone training. There's a officer. He left corrections and he does a drone program in our town, in our county, Orange County, and he has drone cadets and AI training and technology. And I feel that if the children are made more prepared for this type of jobs, we can pitch to those companies, technology companies, and say, hey, listen, our community can staff these technology jobs that pay good money, because Amazon is paying you $18 and $20 an hour. You can't pay rent and mortgage on $18 and $20 an hour. So
True.
We have to make sure that the children are being prepared for the next century. And this is everything going to technology. They don't need to know at this point who came over on the Mayflower. Like, what they gonna do with that?
Can't do anything now at this point. It's way. I was actually. I'm going to be on Armstrong Williams' show this weekend, and we actually going to discuss this. So you should check that one out. We actually discuss illegal immigration and all these, what you're seeing with that, which is some of the riots we're seeing. I touched up in the beginning of the show, but I think some of it is a heavy-handed approach, but no one's really tried to address the situation because Congress hasn't said anything for decades. So you're left with somebody trying to make executive actions to fill in the gap. And the last 4 years was a disaster with a migrant crisis. So that's what you're seeing now. How do you handle this situation that everyone's just saying, we'll just kick the can down the road. Then the moments come when now everything is blowing up, and I think, I don't know, running around and raiding people's houses or going there to try to take the housekeeper. I don't know if that's exactly what we signed up for when we voted President Trump in. But at the same time, you have gangbangers running around, and they're running for the hills because they're terrified of getting picked up. But you have to have a medium. But I don't even know how you do this again, because Congress has completely never addressed this. So now we're stuck with, now the rubber meets the road, and it's got to be addressed, or you're going to have no country soon. Everything's falling apart. And towns like yours right there, or some of the towns with some of these issues, just infiltrate and destroy everything because it's small. And we have to protect the town. The town is important, not the country, but the town.
And that's what I tell people. They're so misguided in thinking that they don't have to vote at the lower level. They think just voting for presidency, but you have to be involved in your lower level politics, because that's where it all starts.
Yep.
So I'm trying to get them. I'm definitely out there. I'm telling you, these people are so happy. They like, oh, it's refreshing to see something. I didn't know that. I didn't know that they've been living there for years and don't even know what's going on in the town.
It's a grassroots effort. You don't sound like one of these, we'll say this, these radical Democrats. They're like completely beholden to the animals that are protesting and screaming in the street and rioting now. And they're like, they're all, first they were defending Israel. Now they're all for the anti-Semitism attacks on them. I've never seen anything like it. I thought, I don't know. It's like the world has become upside down. So when I look at you, and people, I know some people maybe in the comments will say, she's a Democrat. She's a common sense Democrat, of course.
And thank you, right there, exactly what you're saying. I just had this conversation. People need to get away from that way of thinking.
Yeah.
Exactly. If you are a Republican, independent, and you say something that makes sense, and I agree with it, it made sense to me. Vice versa. If I'm a Democrat and you're a Republican and I say something, it shouldn't matter if I said it as a Democrat. I'm saying it because it makes sense. And if you agree with it as a human being, that's the problem. They always want to divide us in everything, from our how we vote, from our sexism, our race. Everything is division in this country, instead of just saying, hey, we're human. We're people, and we all want what's right. We all want to be well off. We all want to be healthy. We all want good education. We all want to be financially free. So let's talk about humanity instead of it being Republican, Democrat, independent. No, let's do the right thing for the people, period.
And a solution, not we're gonna cater to some radical fringe groups, which are on both sides right now. You can see it. I don't need to mention names, or you see it. It's like you govern from the middle. That's what you do. You kind of lean one way or the other in those primaries, and I would venture to say your town is probably predominantly Democrat, which is why you can't run as a Republican, because you'd probably get slaughtered in anything you run for, because that's the way it is. Am I right?
Pretty much.
Yeah. So I get it. But with that, I want to say, what is your website for your campaign? People, how can they get to you if they want to support you? I would. I mean, I think everyone who's watching should really get behind you, because you're someone who's doing a grassroots operation, and I think that's the way to be in life. I don't like these big people that are beholden to all these special interests. You're not that, and you have a lot of experience because you were in a big city agency where there's a lot of corruption there, and you were never accused of anything. And anytime you had an idea, they shot it down, because that's what they do. They love, I am the commissioner. Who you think you're talking to? You know who I am? There's your fascist dictator right there. So where can people reach out to you? Where can they follow your campaign? Because I think it's important. This is a seat that's grassroots. It's important. This is local. People need to get involved in local politics.
And just so you know, this young lady that's in the photo with me, she's also running for County Legislator District 9. So we have a lot of women running for legislative positions in the Orange County area this primary as well. So you can find me on Instagram and Facebook and the website, all under Deshanda Carter for County Legislator.
We ought to gotta get a Twitter too. Get on X too. That's important.
I was on X, and I just had so much. Like I have like 6 Instagram accounts, and I have my
Yeah.
my Facebook. It's just hard to be managing all this. But you know what? I do have an X account, Deshanda Carter, and I think simply Carter Corp. So I will definitely revisit opening that back up just because you said so, Mr. Greco.
You
So
have
that
to.
would be
Why? Yeah, no, you need it because you need people to hear what your policies are, what you said today. I think is almost borderline brilliant. How to solve these problems in corrections that nobody wants to talk about, and I think you could do the same thing for Orange County, and possibly even larger in the future, keeping Orange County in your heart. So I see talent. I know when I see it, but of course, you and I were on the same job, we'll say, same agency, so we know the game. So I think you're well equipped, and I would say good luck in your race. I think that you have as good a shot as any. I hope there's no shenanigans pulled because they're always, with these kind of things that you got to be aware of where you're voting or whatever, because we've seen a lot in the last few years. But if it's a fair race, you get the right people behind you, I think you could pull this off. And then we'll have one of our own, someone who was in corrections, in a position like that, and maybe it bodes well for the future. I love to have you back on in the future, definitely discussing things like corrections, because I like a lot of your ideas. This is a very interesting take on things, and thanks for coming on. I know it's you're probably busy, but it was an honor to have you on, and I really wish you good luck, and I hope they're fair. If it's fair and honest, you have as good a shot as any to win this.
Well, I truly, truly appreciate you for having me on and speaking to your audience. I love your platform. This is actually the first time I listened to the entire show because I'm actually sitting for the entire show. And I'm gonna tell you, you are funny. Like you give good commentary, and I love it. Thank you so much, and thank you for what you're doing and being a formative resource for us law enforcement personnel. We appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you, Deshanda. You have a blessed day and a wonderful weekend as well.
Thank you. I'm gonna go knock on some more doors. So if you're out in Orange County and you're watching this, I'll be out there today. So
Here you go. That's the way to do it.
thank you.
Thank you, Deshanda. There you have it, folks. There's a grassroots campaign. I think there's things that you have to look into. And I don't like labeling, oh, these are Democrats, so they're no good. There's a Republican, is no good. You just heard this person. I think she has a lot of solutions. In fact, she'd have the backs of a lot of people, including city workers. So if you live there, that's who you want to vote for, someone who can relate to you, your concerns. You go for some guy that's been here 26 years, you look around and you're like, what's wrong with this situation? But you keep voting these things in. That's being low information. And remember, this is a fact-based analysis show. I think she laid out a lot of stuff there. So with that being said, I got to bring on my producer for Producer's Take. Mr. Jack, how are you?
I'm doing fantastic today, Sal. As you can probably see behind me, it's a beautiful day here in West Palm Beach, and it was fantastic to have Deshanda on the program as well. The connection between Orange County, where she is, Middletown, Wallkill, that kind of area, and New York City is a lot more noticeable in today's day and age than it's ever been, because parts of Westchester, Long Island, other suburbs in Rockland County, Putnam County have become more and more expensive. And now all of a sudden, Orange County is like a hub for New York City refugees, if that's what you want to call them. Those that are staying in the tri-state area, but can't stay within the 5 boroughs because things have gotten so badly there. More on that in a second, but it's really good to have someone who's advocating for city workers from the suburbs and is trying to make conditions better for those who have a lot of family in the area. Because I hear from a lot of friends who can't move to Florida like we did because they still have family in New York City. And that is a demographic that still exists. So we do have to account for them and talk about them as well.
And also, I like to point out that there's many city workers there, and you want someone who understands that. That's not named Eric Adams, who's a complete fugazi, who's somebody who comes from that background and understands your concerns. This is a pro-law enforcement city worker town. Who better than someone who just today explained many issues, not only knows them, lived them, and actually was trying to come up with solutions, but they're not in charge. If they were in charge, things would be a lot different. And that's what I would hope you would try to vote for if you live in Orange County or you live in any of these little communities where that's local is key. And the best part was she somehow knew Jimmy's Bronx Cafe. She actually was there.
Who doesn't know about Jimmy's Bronx Cafe, though? It's infamous, if I can use that phrase.
Infamous for all the wrong reasons, in my opinion, and the opinion of like the majority of the United States, actually. But you watch like one of these low information shows, you'll hear the opposite. But Honey Germain actually did a good job she did a good job speaking to him about things, and it's just that interview he gave was wild. And the blame cunts of Frito stuff on, they're picking on me because I'm Eric's friend and it's our ethnic background. No, let's forget about all the criminality, human trafficking reports. It doesn't exist. Oh, there was a stabbing at your latest place. Oh, yeah, that has nothing to do with it. The cops are picking on you because your last name is Rodriguez. Yeah, okay. Yeah.
No, and it's ironic how the jokes kind of write themselves in the saddest way possible, right? Like you're being overly pompous, going on all these shows, talking about how you still drink, still like to. He said he didn't do drugs, but we all know he was kind of inferring it like, yeah, I'm still doing drugs, but I'm not going to say it out loud because everyone's going to start judging me. He like leaves the paper trail of evidence behind him and then allows all of the cops to follow it to Sobro Gardens. And then he's arrested less than 24 hours after that happens. It's like, Jimmy, man, I want to have a good Saturday. I was sitting by the pool enjoying myself. And then I'm getting text messages off the hook like, hey, did you see what happened to Jimmy Rodriguez? Did you see this video? Did you see that video? People were asking me to call my reporter friends to try and get audio from the video because they couldn't hear him speaking. It's like, guys, I just want to go to the beach and relax. Yet Jimmy Rodriguez becomes the punchline and the butt of the joke again. And no outlets in New York City. Deshanda noticed this too because she's been on the front lines and really understands how this game is being played. People are protecting Jimmy Rodriguez right now from within because they know they have a vested interest in his business endeavors or his connection with the NYPD, and they don't want to make him look bad and then have the NYPD turn on them and not give them information. And keep in mind, too, that there's this very underground line of communication that takes place in the media industry. So if you lose your access, your coworkers might find out, people might realize that you're not reporting on certain things, but you're going to be the last person to know. So people are overly cautious when it comes to handling big figures in the New York City media. And to me, that's the reason why this situation is getting no coverage, because it's ridiculous that people are not noticing the things that we're noticing when there's so much evidence in place, from the pictures with Pat Lynch and Pat Hendry to the association with Eric Adams and Edward Caban to now these interviews he's done with Honey Germain. He's gone on with Bobby Flay on cooking shows too. So this guy has stupidly, he's not a very good communications manager, but he's let everyone know who he is. And now that we're seeing the shady side of his operation, there's no reason that anyone should be ignoring it.
No, but the fact that we have a victim that got jumped and stabbed and nobody wants to write about it. But crime is down, Jack. You didn't know? Crime is down.
That's another PR thing, right? They're telling you crime is down, but they're not giving you the statistics behind it, right? Like murders, burglaries, robberies, they might be up, but because petit larcenies, I don't know how you pronounce it, because petit larcenies are down and pulling the horse in front of the carriage, crime as a whole is down. So people are kind of taking the media statistics at face value and not really peeling back the layers of the onion. And that's why Jessica Tisch and Eric Adams are able to get away with misleading everyone, including the New York Post, who said they're doing a great job with the protests. Yet we see the rank and file out in the streets with like 3 white shirts standing all the way in the back. Yeah, they're being supported real well. Come on now.
They're so good that they because there's no personnel at the 83rd precinct, because they're all out assisting on riots, they burnt their vehicles, but crime is down. Let's not count that, by the way. Nobody saw it. It's unknown. So we're going to declassify it. It's not an arson. It's not that. It's a petit larceny. That's all it is. That's the games they play. And John Schell this morning, he was on with Jessica Tisch on Sid Rosenberg. I got to say this. I know Sid, he's a friend. We know how he's friend, but the way he acts with these people, and I know there's people in the comments that talk about this all the time with this guy, being friendly, but having earned people's respect are two different things. You're losing it, buddy. This woman is not, you have to challenge these people that come on, not just say, oh, it's so great. I'm fawning over you. John Shell, you're so great. Oh, by the way, did you kill someone and there's no grand jury minutes? That's what people want to know. What is your involvement in Lieutenant Epps' case? Because you're in that, right? So what, like they were like having sexual assaults and you like, okay, this, or why is your name in that, John? You don't hear that.
You didn't mention that he killed someone and then lied about it because they got an independent review board. Some of the members worked in law enforcement to review the entire situation. And Shell said that the victim backed his car up into him and he accidentally fired his gun. Yet all of the testimonies show that he was standing up in the standing position when he fired a single shot that went through the heart of the victim. So he lied about killing someone and then was promoted multiple times, several of those times in a discretionary matter where there was no civil service exam. And people have not been pointing that out either for some reason. It's the classic example of the bad guys always winning out, as they usually do in the NYPD.
That's a problem. Also, his affinity for Kaz Dodry, who's probably the single most hated human being. If you voted in the New York City Police Department, who's the most liked and then who's the most hated? He's number one. He's the most hated person in the New York City Police Department. And he thinks that's a great distinction. He's now escalating on the most hated person in New York City. He's fighting his best friend, Eric Adams, though. So that's quite interesting. But I know you wanted to give your take on the mayoral race, right? Because you have the debates tonight. That ought to be interesting. So what do you got?
Yeah, so before we get into kind of like my take on the mayoral race, Andrew Cuomo put out an ad this morning.
Oh, God.
And I just want to take a look at it and kind of break it down a little bit because he's really changed his tune in terms of how he's campaigning. So let's just watch it.
LA's in chaos. Imagine it's Times Square. Trump's coming for New York. Who do you think can stop him? Zoran Mamdani's a 33-year-old dangerously inexperienced legislator who's passed just 3 bills with a staff you can fit inside a New York elevator. New York already has a crisis of affordability and safety. We need someone ready to roll. Andrew Cuomo's managed a state and managed crises, from COVID to Trump. Trump's at the city gates. We need someone experienced to slam them shut. Paid for by Cuomo for NYC Inc.
So that ad explicitly said that Andrew Cuomo handled COVID and knows how to handle crises, as if everyone forgot that he put elderly people who had COVID in nursing homes and essentially murdered a part of the state's population. That's number one. Number two, the entire race, Andrew Cuomo said, I'm not going to bash Mamdani. It's going to be all about me and how I can help you. But as we inch closer and closer to Super Tuesday, and we're now 12 days away, and we have the final Democratic mayoral debate tonight, which is a lot more important for Andrew Cuomo than Zoran Mamdani, because if Mamdani loses the Democratic election, he can still run as the WFP nominee, whereas Andrew Cuomo has virtually no chance running as an independent, right? So, I mean, it's kind of weird to see Cuomo changing his tune, but my story today was about how a strong showing from Zoran could really put him over the hump. Now, I know that I said 2 days ago that you can't overreact to the numbers, and I stand by that take, but I also believe, Sal, that when there's smoke, there's fire, and it's clear that Zoran Mamdani has energized a forgotten about minority in New York City. At least they feel like they were forgotten about, even though they all have millions of dollars in their bank accounts, which they never earned. They said they were forgotten about, but they feel marginalized because of what's going on in Washington. And to a very sad degree, he's kind of preyed on that a little bit. And he's been asked numerous times about how he's going to do the things that he's promising that he said he was going to do, even though none of them are viable. And he has nice solutions. At least they sound nice coming out of his mouth. But in terms of the practical implementation of a lot of them, there's a lot of extreme question marks. And to me, this situation kind of bears resemblance to a movie that I saw before. Just kind of a one-sentence Cliff Notes analogy here. Robert Redford played a young lawyer who ran in a political election against a hotshot who had been in office for decades and won the election. And in the last scene of the movie, he says to his campaign manager, "Now what?" I feel like if Zoran Mamdani wins the Democratic nomination and then goes on to win the general election, which still is kind of a long shot given the number of candidates at play, it's going to be that type of a situation. He's going to be looking around the room saying, holy crap, I've only been a state assemblyman for 3 years. I've been walked over by my constituents in Albany to the point where they're like laughing at me. And now I'm going to go run the biggest city in the world where I have promised to freeze everyone's rent, to have city buses that run fast and free with free childcare. And I'm going to fund all of this with a tax on the wealthiest 1%, even though they've been leaving this city because it's getting too expensive and they don't want to pay taxes anymore. They can go to Florida where they don't have to do that. I don't know. Make it make sense, but I feel like we're just kind of like on a collision course toward disaster here.
Yeah, I think so either way, because I think New York City will vote low information, and they'll probably vote either him or Cuomo to be the mayor. I don't see Eric Adams surviving. I think he's been done for a while, even though the Zoran Mamdani, I guess, saying, oh, he's going to be the mayor, all this like fear mongering around him is Eric Adams' camp and the Trump people, the MAGA donors, as we'll say, trying to prop up Eric by saying, Eric's gonna save the Jewish community out of nowhere, a community he doesn't really give a damn about other than their money. And Zoran Mamdani, who hates Jewish people, apparently, he's gonna be your mayor and he's gonna like set up the Gestapo or something, which that won't even happen. So I see him, he's a threat. But is he going to win that primary? I think Cuomo either he's going to win by a couple of points, he'll squeak it by, but he's done enough to survive all of that. Now, in a general election, then people want to act like I'm crazy or act like Curtis Sliwa stands in almost, if he gets any kind of backing, he stands in a position where as a Republican candidate, he will have 30% of that vote instantaneously. When 3 other people will be fighting for 70% of the rest of the electorate, Curtis has a chance.
No, Curtis definitely has a chance, but he's going to need the undecided voter base to kind of buy into what he's selling before we can really feel confident that he has a shot at winning this thing. Does he have a shot? Of course he does. He has a decent chance. And I also think that
money.
Yeah, no, and
money.
I also
Republicans money.
Yeah. I mean, if I'll put it to you this way, if Cuomo does not win the Democratic nomination, Sliwa's chances of winning have gone up exponentially because unfortunately over this last cycle, we've seen a lot of traditional Republican donors kind of slide over to the center a little bit more and start backing Cuomo. So if Cuomo's no longer in this race, it opens up the pool a little bit more. And I'll go out on a limb and say that Mamdani is not necessarily the favorite either. I think with Eric Adams, he's not going to emerge for another couple of months. Once he starts getting the endorsements of union heads, and by all indications, Scott Monroe from the Detectives Endowment Association is going to be the first one to get behind him, I think we can see the Eric Adams hype train start to ramp up a little bit more. Now, I don't think that he's popular enough to definitively say he's going to be able to produce those results, but I wouldn't count him out yet. I think that Mamdani, Sliwa, and then Adams, probably in that order, are the top 3 candidates in the general election if Mamdani gets the nomination.
I'll say this. Eric is the Trump candidate. He's not going to win. I'm just telling you right now. New York City, whatever Trump says, they will vote against it. They will hate him. You want to win, stay far away from him. You'll win. You have a chance if you stay away from him. If you have his backing, they're going to then say, okay, well, now I know where Trump's going to be, which is Eric. So guess what? He's not going to get those votes. There's a lot of people that are the fear mongering, like what Cuomo put out, that resonates with people. They really think that Trump is some kind of demigod, or it's insane. And I don't agree with stuff that he does myself. I have my own issues, right? But am I going to sit there and listen to this stuff? This is going to affect my vote? No, it's crazy. You got to vote on what's going on around you. Okay. And the people that would be the mayor would be affected. Mamdani, Cuomo. Where does Trump fit in? He's the president. This guy actually will not be president. His term is up in 2029, and you're going to be mayor past that. Where does this factor in? And nobody's talking about it. It's just low information. Oh my God. And that's it. Fear mongering. It's over. We got to vote for Cuomo. That's I've never seen anything like this.
No, it's weird. And you make a good point that the lack of involvement from other politicians has been unlike anything we've ever seen before. Mr. New York politician, obviously he works in Washington, but Mr. New York politician, Chuck Schumer, who's been in this game since before we were even thoughts in our parents' minds, right? Like he said, I'm not getting involved in the mayoral debate. AOC does not endorse Mamdani until after early voting starts, which is very significant because you lose out on a percentage of the voter base. So that was a very calculated move that nobody's talking about. But anyway, AOC doesn't really want to get involved early on. Chuck Schumer's staying out of it. Eric Adams doesn't talk about any of the other potential candidates at all. A lot of the state assemblymen up in Albany are kind of focusing on themselves and keeping their heads down. Part of the problem here, Sal, is that New York City is in such a bad state right now that people don't want to be associated with what's going on there and the level of political corruption for fear that it's going to drag them down by the ankles. And I think Trump is operating with the same mentality, although he understands that associating with Eric Adams, John Schell, and Kaz Daughtry is in his best interest. So somehow he's decided to make a one-time exception for the three of them.
That was terrible, by the way. I don't know what he was thinking. That was
no.
What are you doing with those guys? But, look, if he wants to run his reputation into the ground, so be it. You only have until January 2029. And I promise you, when he's gone, you'll forget how quick it was when he was president. It's just the way the world works. So, we'll see with the mayor's race. But before you go, I want to remind you that who's the best team in the major leagues again?
I knew you were going to go there. And by the way, to go back to my old roots as an update anchor, I can update everyone and let them know that the Mets are up 4-0 over Washington in the bottom of the 6th inning at Citi Field as we are on the air right now. Jeff McNeil, a 3-run home run. And I know that everyone wants to talk about Juan Soto, home runs, back-to-back games, big game last night too. But I think the real story of the season, something no one's talking about, is the Mets pitching staff. How about that complete game shutout from David Peterson last night? 6 strikeouts. He's someone who's totally come into his own in a way that none of us could have ever expected this season. Really good southpaw starter for the Mets. He's evolved to the point where you can stick him in the rotation now. And then Kodai Senga is having another outstanding outing today. This pitching staff, once they get back Sean Manaea and Frankie Montas, is going to be that much more dangerous. And I think the depth that we talked about in the last show is more evident in the pitching staff, arguably, than it is in the lineup. And that's really impressive. This is a really good team this year, guys. And I think they can make a run. I know they had a couple tough losses against the Dodgers when they went head-to-head the last time they played out at Chavez Ravine. But wait until October. I think when they meet again and the Mets potentially have home field advantage, the story is going to be a lot different. And the Mets are in it to get blood because they're sad about the way things ended last season. They probably should have won that series, and they probably would have won the World Series as a result because the Yankees, although they were the best team in the American League, clearly were not the best team in baseball.
No, I think it's the same again this year. Yankees, a lot of hoopla. I know they beat the Mets 2 out of 3. Wait till you come to Citi Field. It'll be a completely different story. And the Mets, Soto, what I tell you, Alonso's leading the league in RBI. Soto, all of a sudden, this guy's coming into his own.
Nimmo just hit a home run too. Second straight day with a home run for him.
For
Brandon Nimmo, yeah. So
Brandon Nimmo's another guy people sleep on. The Mets are stacked, and their pitching staff is what nobody's even talking about. They're the best pitching staff in the entire major leagues. And they have the best record for that reason. It could be the Tigers and the Mets. It could be the Yankees and the Mets. The Mets are going to be there again. Why? Look at the way the team is stacked. And it's an honor to finally say that. And I've been waiting to tell you, but the Mets do have the best record in the major leagues. They're the hottest team. They crush everyone at home. This team is finally Steve Cohen his reputation follows him. The guy's successful. No matter what he touches, it's always turning to gold. Once again, he's turned the Mets from a laughing stock to a team that now you're winning. You're winning big, and you also have homegrown talent lingering around that could be potentially a star in the next year or two and take over from somebody who's a big name player right now. So that's what you want. It's the Braves' way of doing things. You're just missing a championship. And it's good to see that's doing it.
Isn't it amazing how much the organizational identity has changed just over the past couple of years since the Wilpons sold the team? I mean, it goes to show you that these organizations can be changed catastrophically with the right ownership group in place. Keyword, right. Because if you have one of these billionaire owners who only cares about maximizing profits and not spending any money of their own, a la the Monforts in Colorado, things are not going to go well. But Steve Cohen has like a personal stake in this game. He loves the Mets. Like, he was a Mets super fan his entire life, and he's done a great job with this team. I almost wish that Citi Field could have been built under his ownership, because I think things would have been a lot better. Remember, the Wilpons built that stadium after they lost a lot of money to Bernie Madoff, and they did so very cheaply. And as a result, it's not a very good ballpark, at least not on the surface. So, yeah, I almost wonder what the Mets would have looked like had Cohen taken over a decade ago. But hey, it's better to have this happen later than never. And in an era of social media and fan engagement and big name superstars getting huge contracts and all that good stuff, I think in that sense, when you think about it that way, they got him at the perfect time.
Yeah, I'll disagree. I think Citi Field is actually it's probably the one ballpark I went to it's better than Lone Depot Park, where Lone Depot Park has a dome.
That's not setting the bar pretty high, though, to be fair. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know if you ever went to a Marlins game at the old Dolphin Stadium. That was a total mess because they had no dome and there was rain coming down all the time, and there was like rain pouring through the holes in the seats and stuff. I mean, that was like a safety hazard type of a situation.
I thought Citi Field, though, was built with the eye towards the Dodgers and not the Mets. For whatever reason, this is Wilpon's fantasy, but the stadium itself has a lot of amenities. It's got a lot of good looks. What you don't have, the outfield, it's all messed up because he built this like the old Ebbets Field in like 2015. You're like, look, that was in the 20s. Like, that was a completely different era. So you built this huge thing in left field. They had to that. And I don't like it when the fences are just low enough so that people could try to rob you of home runs. The Mets don't have that because they built that tremendous center field thing, and now it looks like there's a line. I never liked that. I thought if Cohen could do anything, change it back, take whatever it is to make it so that you could have to actually try to take a home run by putting your hand over the fence. That was always my thing with baseball. I want to give a shout out also, Indiana Pacers last night. Great game against the Thunder. They have proven a worthy opponent. They took down the Knicks, who are not a good franchise, who I think have racist overtones the way they run things, because they don't have any Jewish Heritage Month. They don't have any Italian Heritage Month. They don't have Asian. Now I'm going to do the reverse of Eric Adams. The Knicks, I think, are run. Just look around you. I don't have to say much. Look at how they run. That's all I'm going to say. And they deserve whatever they have coming to them, because this was a year they should have went to the finals. But the Knicks, who are 1973, they should be called the 1973ers, because that's they'll never win again.
One more story about that before we walk out the door for the day that I think listeners would like. They did have one Jewish Heritage Night when I was 8 years old, and we went with my Hebrew school. They played Maccabi Tel Aviv in a preseason game, and the head coach of Maccabi Tel Aviv was ejected for arguing with the referees, and he was escorted out of the building by James Dolan's security team. True story. They actually never came back to Madison Square Garden after that happened, and there was never another Jewish Heritage Night. And all of our Hebrew school teachers were like, "Guys, cover your eyes! Like, this isn't happening!" Like, as he was getting like dragged out by like 5 security guards, a la Patrick Ewing. Remember when that happened? And Spike Lee, he also was kicked out in a really bad manner. So, I mean, part of the problem here, Sal, we talked about ownership with the Wilpons. I think it's systemic with James Dolan and his inability to govern multiple organizations. Remember, he owns MSG, the Rangers, and the Knicks, and also his personal struggles. I mean, the guy notoriously has an insane ego, has had substance abuse problems for years, and just is not willing to listen to anyone's input about anything. And when you're running a big organization operating with that mentality, it becomes very problematic.
Yeah. And unfortunately, he's also a big donor to Eric Adams. I hate to say that, but
The cherry on top of the cake.
that's the icing on the cake. All right. Well, I think we're going to get out of here, Jack. Thanks for joining us for the producer's take. Everyone tune in tomorrow, 8:05 live in the morning. John and Eric will be back on with the Finest Unfiltered. I think Marlon will be on, so they'll do the weekly roundtable. Also, go back, check out Executive Perspective that was on last night. They're on at 5:05 every Wednesday, 17:05. Actually had Jim Walden on. So Ron and Rob were talking to Jim Walden about CCOB. So it was good. They had Jim Walden on Finance Unfiltered on Monday, came on Wednesday, Executive Perspective. So they really went into in-depth into the CCOB, how he's going to, if he gets elected mayor, which Jim Walden should also be mentioned. Unfortunately, where are the donors? So they're too busy finagling with Cuomo and Eric Adams. It's a battle of low information in New York City, unfortunately. But Jim Walden has a lot of solutions. Will these voters actually listen, or are they just worried about popularity contests and showing up on social media and being self-impressed? We'll wait and see. Tune in to that one. There's Jim Walden right there. I think he's a proven fighter. He's also a former prosecutor, he's a defense attorney. Look at his policies. He's got his stances. What does Cuomo have? Look out. Trump is president. That's not a policy. Democrats love to run on fear-mongering and hate. Hate is always a better motivator than love. That's actually a Stone's rule, but it's a fact. So if you generate enough hate and fear-mongering, you'll get your desired result. And I just hope that's not what happens in this mayoral race. But we'll wait and see that debates tonight. That ought to be interesting. Good thing the Mets are almost done with their game, so now everyone in New York City could tune in to watch that debacle that's going to happen at that debate. So with that being said, thank you all for tuning in. If you can, once again, like, share, subscribe, reshare this. Try to inform all your low information friends that they could get some information and flip, have their blue pill moment, red pill, blue pill, have that moment and get informed. Get informed with the Sal Greco Show, which is, we try to keep this fact-based analysis, like I said. And thank you all for tuning in. Thanks for jumping in the comments. I hope everybody has a great rest of your day. Have a great weekend. Remember, I think the Florida Panthers playing the Oilers tonight, Stanley Cup Finals, Game 3. That'll be interesting as well. Or Game 4, one of those games. But they're playing tonight, so check that out if you can as well. Don't forget in the morning, Finest Unfiltered, 8:05. John and Eric are going to have their weekly roundtable. So with that being said, I'm signing off from sunny South Florida, which is a sunny place for shady people.